somebody says to you, you're too sensitive, basically what they're saying is, your emotions don't matter, thanks very much. Stop being so sensitive. You need to feed my sense of worthiness. Stop being so sensitive. So if you have someone who's saying that to you over and over again, it's a form of gaslighting. You're not too sensitive. You have feelings, and you should be able to voice them in a healthy relationship. One of the manipulation tactics that a narcissist will use is something called gaslighting. And in today's episode, I am going to be sharing with you 20 phrases that a narcissist will use to gaslight you into you thinking, maybe it's you. Are you the crazy one? Massive welcome to Trauma and Narcissism Redefined, your weekly podcast that will hopefully give you inspiration, education, and hope that there is light at the end of that long dark tunnel that we call narcissistic abuse, because let me tell you, there absolutely is, because I've been exactly where you are right now, and I've come through the other side. I completely retrained from being a podiatrist to work in this space, because let's be really clear here, narcissistic abuse is domestic abuse, which is trauma. And a lot of the work that I do working with people is around trauma. And the beauty of trauma is it's not the person, it's not an event. Trauma is actually what happens inside of you as a result of that, because of how we perceive ourselves, because of these events, because of these relationships. But the beauty of that is that you can change it. It doesn't have to be a life sentence. Yes, the abuser will not change. The narcissist will never ever change. But what happens inside of you with your perception of the abuse, we can change that. And that somatic side of it, which is called working in the body, we absolutely can. So now I've got my phone in front of me today because I don't want to miss any of these, because I'm going to go through 20 gaslighting phrases that the narcissist will use with you. Gaslighting is something, when I came out of my marriage to my ex-husband, who was a covert narcissist, I'd never really heard of gaslighting. I'd kind of heard the word, but I didn't really know what it was. And I didn't realise that, I'd been in an abusive relationship, because I didn't have bruises and broken bones. That was the first thing that I didn't realise. What, you mean you can be in an abusive relationship? It can be psychological and emotionally abusive? Didn't really understand that, didn't really get that. We all get taught at school about bullying and things like this, don't we? We kind of get that in the school playground. But no one had taught me really about bullying, abuse in adult relationships. So when I was in my marriage, I didn't realise any of this stuff. I just thought, oh, he's a cheat, or things aren't going very well. We're arguing, there's a bit of conflict. I'm feeling a little bit like I'm just focusing on being the best mum I possibly can. But I knew something wasn't right. But I didn't realise it was an abusive relationship. And I hear this from people like yourself time and time again. You know, why is it that I'm feeling like this? It can't be an abusive relationship, because I'm not walking around with lots of bruises or any broken bones. People won't believe me, because that's the tactic very often of narcissists. Very different publicly, remember, than what they are privately. So what exactly is gaslighting first, before I go through these phrases? Well, gaslighting is a manipulation and abuse tactic that very often the narcissist will use to make you start to doubt your sense of reality, for you to start to think maybe it's you, maybe you are the problem. Now, the reason why they use gaslighting is they want to isolate you. They want you to become totally reliant on them for everything, because that means then they are always going to get from you a constant source of what we call narcissistic supply. And narcissistic supply is basically you making the narcissist feel better, you making the narcissist feel a sense of worth. Because remember, narcissists may act all confident, but actually they are amongst the most deeply wounded individuals, and they need you as much very often as you may think you need them, because they need you to feed their sense of lack of worth. And they will use gaslighting as a tactic to really get you into a space where you feel like maybe the narcissist is the only person in the world that you can truly rely on, that they love you, that, you know, they're just saying these things because they love you and they want you to stay with you, and just dropping those breadcrumbs of love enough for you to kind of have hope maybe that the relationship will be okay. So I want to give you 20 phrases, and whenever I share some of these on my social media platforms, and do make sure that you go and follow me over on Instagram and Facebook. You know, I've got a free support group as well, and I'll put those in the show notes for you. And also, please go and follow me on TikTok. I'm trying to get going on TikTok, and I'm not very good at posting regularly on there. Instagram, Facebook, very, very regularly on there. But go and follow me, because if I see more people following me, that will give me the impetus to do more on there as well. So thank you if you do that. So let's go back to these gaslighting phrases, because often when I share some of these, the amount of messages I get, oh, my partner says this, or my mother says that, my father says this, my friend says that, my co-worker, my ex. People don't realize that in succession, over a longer period of time, these types of phrases are signs of abuse, which is the gaslighting part of it. Now, we can all say some of these in the heat of the moment. So let's be clear here. We can say all of the ones I'm going to share maybe once in the heat of an argument, for instance. Okay, we can say that. The difference between that, because you may hear these and think, well, I've said them now and again, you know, the difference between that and abuse is they are used as a form of manipulation and control over a period of time, and many, many times. And that's the key difference in all of this. And I think this is why sometimes, you know, narcissistic abuse makes it quite hard sometimes for us to recognize, because we can all act in some ways that we're not very proud of sometimes. You know, we can all behave in that. But narcissists, it's over a period of time in all aspects of life, leaving you doubting your sense of self and your sense of reality. So let's go through some of them. So the first one, and I used to hear this one, you're too sensitive. You know, so when somebody says to you, you're too sensitive, basically what they're saying is, your emotions don't matter, thanks very much. Stop being so sensitive. You need to feed my sense of worthiness. Stop being so sensitive. So if you have someone who's saying that to you over and over again, it's a form of gaslighting. You're not too sensitive. You have feelings, and you should be able to voice them in a healthy relationship. That never happened. So sometimes the narcissist will simply say, well, that never happened. Now, you know, in your gut, you know, maybe the first time that they say these things, you're thinking, well, hold on a second. It did happen. I know that happened. But they are the person who loves you most in the world, looking you in the eye saying, that never happened. Now, I share a particular story about this in my book. In fact, my first book, Divorce Became My Superpower, which you can get on Amazon if you want to go and grab it. And it was a story about how my ex-husband said he'd actually killed somebody coming off an aeroplane. And it beggars belief. But he looked me in the eye and he said all of these things to me. And my gut was saying, that's a load of rubbish. But he's my husband. He's looking me in the eye and telling me all these things. So what do I do? Well, of course, I'm going to believe him, because then at least we're in that relationship. We're still staying in that marriage. So if you want to go and buy the book to see what it is, it's the most extreme story you will ever see, but it highlights exactly what a narcissist will do, and the fact that I believed it at the time as well. You're overreacting. Again, that goes back to that sensitivity piece, doesn't it? You're pushing back, maybe asking a question about something, and it's you're overreacting. Basically, shut up. I don't want to keep talking about this anymore because you might find me out. So I'm going to say you're overreacting. So again, you're overreacting is another gaslighting phrase. You're imagining things. Again, if you've got someone continually saying to you, you're imagining things, you're going to start to doubt your own sense of reality. What if I am? Maybe I am. Total gaslighting tactic by a narcissist there. Because if you start to doubt your own sense of reality, that can make you start to feel fearful about living in the real world. So I need to stay in this relationship. The next one, I never said that. You know, I absolutely had this said to me many, many times. I never said that. And again, you know that they did. And when these things are being told to you over a long period of time, like I never said that, you just start to numb out, you start to dissociate, you start to actually just be in a relationship where you're an absolute shell of yourself, because that trust of your own emotions and feelings and thoughts starts to dissipate. Because if you're being told all the time things like, I never said that, you're imagining things, you're too sensitive, then you do start to doubt your sense of reality, to become a shell. Number 6, you're just trying to start a fight. So you're asking a question about something, and then you're just trying to start a fight. I'm going to make you the bad guy in all of this because you want to start a fight, because I actually don't want to answer the question that you're asking me about in that moment. Number 7, you're crazy. And the key part of this is everyone thinks so. So I'm going to call you crazy. I'm going to say everyone else thinks that. So you feel like if everyone else thinks that, the only safety that you have is with the narcissist. You're remembering it wrong, because again, you're remembering it actually very, very right. But they need to say you're remembering it wrong, because if you were right, then you could challenge them and you may say something, and that will upset their sense of control and manipulation. I heard this one a lot too, number 9. I was just joking. I'm only joking. You take things so seriously. If you have someone in your life that every single time that they say something to you, and you start to show some emotion around that and say, hey, or, don't say that. And then they say, I'm only joking. Yeah, if they keep doing that, it's a sign of gaslighting. They're testing the waters to see what they can get away with. And this kind of ties into the next one. Stop being so dramatic. Again, they're putting the onus on you. You could be asking a perfectly legitimate question about something in your lives together, but you're being overly dramatic about it. So I'm going to make you the bad guy so I don't need to discuss it too. You're the only one who has a problem with this. Again, a very key sentence with that, basically saying nobody else in the world has a problem with this except you. You are the bad person in all of that. Why can't you take a joke? Again, it's not funny. It really isn't funny. But they're laughing and joking and making out that they've said something, and then all of a sudden, you're this wicked person that can't take a joke. Again, doubting your sense of self. It's basically saying dishonor how you feel with your emotions because you can't take a joke. No, not true. You're always making things up. Basically, again, making you doubt your sense of reality. You almost become living in this parallel universe of what you think is real and what isn't real, and you're made to doubt that sense of reality. It's your fault I did this. I remember, again, I've shared this in my first book and in How to Heal After Narcissistic Abuse, my new one with Hay House, which is a great healing book, by the way. If you haven't grabbed it, again, I'll pop the link to that in the show notes. That it's your fault I did this. I remember when I caught my ex-husband out the first time he'd had an affair, and I was 6 months pregnant at the time. And we'd gone through this 24 hours basically of him denying it, all the usual things. You all know the score, don't you? And eventually, when I found this piece of evidence and information, I remember standing, some of you will have heard this, I remember standing literally in the doorway of our lounge, and he was sat in the lounge, and I said, are you still going to deny this? And even now I can remember there was this split second where there was this, can I get away with it still, or am I actually going to have to say now? And I remember him, then he said yes and started to cry. And it became then my fault that he'd had an affair, because we'd had 4 miscarriages before I fell pregnant with our daughter. And I'd been really poorly and obviously suffering and being upset, all of the things, obviously normal stuff if you've had multiple miscarriages. And I'd been really sick during my pregnancy too. So his way of saying the reason why he'd had an affair was, I felt like not a good husband. I felt like I couldn't be there for you. So guess what I did? I mean, this is gaslighting extreme. I said, sorry. I'm really sorry that you almost had to have an affair because I was pregnant and I had my miscarriages. That is gaslighting extraordinaire. Yeah, very, very good he was at that. I apologized to him for him having an affair when I was 6 months pregnant. Maybe you can relate to some of those things too. And I look back now and I think, wow, I would never be like that now. But it shows that narcissistic abuse is not like this light switch that one day is good, the next day it's abuse. It's insidious. It's over a period of time. It's breadcrumbing. Good days, good hours, then the abuse, and little things like cheating, like gaslighting, like manipulation, like financial abuse. All of these things all coming together in a narcissistically abusive relationship. You're just insecure. Again, making out the problem is you, not the situation. Because in a healthy relationship, you should be able to voice anything that you want and how you feel, and it should be met with respect and for somebody to listen. They may not agree with it, but there still should be the respect there. I'm sorry you feel that way. Again, it's almost like, I'm sorry you feel that way. And this is a really clever way of someone when they say sorry. And you may have said this yourself, I'm sorry you feel that way, thinking it's the right thing to say. But actually, how somebody feels is how they feel. It shouldn't be, I'm sorry you feel that way. It should be, I'm sorry I did this. See the difference? You're making something out of nothing. Again, they minimize a situation that is maybe so important to you. And again, in a healthy relationship, they would listen. Even if they did think it was small, to you, if it's big, then it's big to you. And that is what matters. Oh, this is a tough one. Everyone else agrees with me. So basically, again, I'm going to isolate you and make you think everybody else agrees with me. So you are the bad person in all of this. You are the problem in all of this. And you know what? You're so lucky I'm actually here with you in the first place. You're too emotional. Heard that many times before. I like being emotional. I like being in tune with my emotions. Obviously now I don't cry as much, but crying is important. When I think of my relationship with my ex, I used to cry a lot. You know, crying for me was a way of, you know, this hope that if he saw me crying, he'd feel sorry for me and show some emotion towards me. But often it was like he was looking at paint dry when I was crying too. But often you're too emotional. Again, you're the problem, not me. And then the final one, I'm the only one who really loves you. No one else would put up with you. So basically, again, saying, I love you, so you're onto a good thing with me, and nobody else would. So remember, those of us who end up in these narcissistic relationships have a deep lack of sense of worthiness. We don't feel good enough. So breadcrumbs off an abuser still feels safer and better than none. Because if we're not in any relationship and we don't have anybody, it's kind of reinforcing the beliefs that we feel about ourselves. Oh, I really must be worthless and not good enough then, because nobody is with me in this scenario too. So these phrases are often there to make you start to question your sense of self, your sense of who you are at the core. And really that is at the core of narcissistic abuse, which is domestic abuse, making you doubt your sense of self. You stop trusting yourself and you become reliant on the other person. You may isolate yourself in all of this. And all of these signs are signs of abuse, and gaslighting in particular, because it's just words, we tend to think, oh, it's not that bad, brush it off. No, these words are specifically chosen in these types of sentences to gaslight you into doubting your sense of self, doubting your sense of reality, wondering if you are the crazy one. So you start to think, gosh, if I wasn't with them, then I would be on my own. It is my fault. I am the problem. How lucky am I to have this person? At least they are with me. And that is exactly what they want. So 20 gaslighting phrases I have just shared. How many of those have you heard in your relationship? Let me know. Let me know either via Instagram, drop me a message, maybe email me. Again, I'll put my email, hello@carolinestrawson.com. Let me know. You're not on your own in any of this. Gaslighting for me was a huge part of my relationship with my ex-husband, and it really made me doubt my sense of self, who I was at the core. I stopped trusting myself. And even when I came out of the relationship, that self-trust in making even the smallest of decisions, I needed somebody else to help me with them in case I got it wrong. And that's normal when you've been in abusive relationships. It's about learning to start to trust yourself, learning to start to notice those sensations in your gut and start to trust them again, and finding healthy relationships where you are able to come and speak from your sense of self and they will listen. They may not agree, but they still are respectful and they will still listen because you matter, and you do matter, and you are important in any relationship. It's not one is more important than the other, which is obviously the dynamic when we're in these narcissistic relationships. So I hope that was really, really helpful for you. I didn't know these phrases. I didn't realize these phrases perpetually said over a period of time constitute a form of abuse, and it does. It's psychological and emotional abuse. It's a tactic a narcissist will use, and it is a form of domestic abuse, which is trauma. So remember, knowledge is power in all of this. This might be new information to you. Maybe you don't know where to go. Make sure you come and join my free support group. That might be your very, very first step. Go and binge watch some of my other podcasts. Don't be on your own in any of this. This is why I do the work that I do, because I felt very isolated and very alone, and I didn't feel seen and heard, and I am so passionate about you recognizing this is not your fault. You are in an abusive relationship, and that might be you're still in it, and we need to create a safe exit strategy, or maybe you're just out of it and you're kind of like, whoa, this is all new stuff. Just take one day at a time. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You can move from very often complex post-traumatic stress disorder, from being in these relationships, to what we call post-traumatic growth. This can be the catalyst for you to reevaluate your life, to really look at your deepest wounds yourself, to really start to heal those and go on and live an amazing life. And we call that post-traumatic growth. So take care, my friends. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you on the next episode on Trauma and Narcissism Redefined.